Shalom, and welcome to Parsha Highlights and Insights. This is Rabbi Fischer. This week's Parsha is Beshallach, continuing the account of Bnei Israel leaving Mitzrayim and what happens next. It's parallel to Pesach, to the 7 days of Pesach. Yetziat Mitzrayim is the first day of Pesach, and we're going to lead up to what happened on the seventh day of Pesach and beyond. The Parsha, we might say, is divided into two parts. In the first part, we are leading up to the miracle of the splitting of the Yam Suf, the Sea of Reeds. But first, we're told about how Bnei Israel made their progress from Sukkot to the next place called Etam. Hashem guides Bnei Israel not along the coast, but rather into the desert. Moshe takes the bones of Yosef with him out of Egypt, thus fulfilling the oath that Yosef gave to his family, which continued from generation to generation until this point. They travel and they encamp at Etam with the pillar of cloud traveling with them by day and the pillar of fire by night. In the next part, we see how Egypt changes its mind. Hashem says to Moshe to tell Bnei Israel to change their direction, and in this way they will lure Paro. And in fact, that's what happens. They change direction, they encamp next to Baal Tzafon, and when Paro finds out about it, he leads his people to pursue Bnei Israel. And as the Egyptians approach, of course, Bnei Israel are in a panic. They have Egypt coming up behind them. They have the sea in front of them, Yam Suf, and nowhere to go. Moshe assures the people that Hashem will take care of them. And this leads us to the actual miracle of the splitting of the sea. Hashem tells Moshe, tell Bnei Israel to go forward, and you, Moshe, will raise your hands so that I will split the sea and I will harden Paro's heart. The angel moves between the Israelite camp and the Egyptian camp, and the sea is split. Bnei Israel are able to walk on dry land with the sea like a wall of water on each side of them. The Egyptians enter the sea, and then they see how Hashem brings the sea back crashing down on them, and the Egyptians yell, flee, Hashem is fighting for the Israelites. They're totally confused, and the Egyptians drown in the sea. As Moshe returns the sea, and the Egyptians are drowned, and simultaneously Bnei Israel are saved. And of course, at this point, they achieve a level of belief and trust in Hashem and in Moshe. And therefore, Moshe leads them in a song of thanks and praise and triumph. The song, known as Az Yashir or Shirat Hayam, the Song of the Sea, has a few themes. One is praise to Hashem for defeating his enemies. Another is Hashem's might. Another is how, as a result of all of this, fear is falling upon all of the surrounding nations that might have posed a threat to Israel, but they are too afraid to go against God's people. Another theme is a prayer that Hashem may bring Israel to its land, and in order to proclaim Hashem's sovereignty in his sanctuary. And also, we are told that Miriam, Moshe's sister, and Aaron's sister, lead the women in song as well. And that brings us to the end of the first part of the parasha. The second part of the parasha takes us from the Sea of Reeds all the way up to a place called Refidim. Remember, the splitting of the sea is the seventh day, or coincides with the seventh day of Pesach, but they continue traveling beyond that. One place they arrive at is a place called Marah. They've gone for 3 days without finding any water, and the water that they finally find at Marah is bitter. Hashem instructs Moshe to take a certain tree, to throw it into the water, and that will sweeten the waters. And at that point, Hashem also teaches Bnei Israel through Moshe the first of the mitzvot, or the first of the mitzvot outside of Egypt, at this place called Marah. They continue to travel. They come to a place called Elim, where there are 12 springs and 70 palm trees, which very much parallels Bnei Israel. 12 springs like the 12 tribes, and 70 palm trees like the 70 people in Yaakov's family who first went down to Egypt. They continue to travel in the wilderness of Sin, and they have a problem with food, or they say they no longer have food. The matzah that they had taken out is finished, and now they need food, and they complain. Moshe says that Hashem will provide both meat and bread, but along the way he teaches that every day they're going to receive food, but on Friday they should prepare extra, because the food that Hashem is going to provide will not fall on Shabbat. And in the morning of the first day, they see something that is on the ground. They call it man, and it's a kind of bread from heaven. Also, Hashem provides birds called slav, that's a quail, and in this way they will have meat as well. So they have water provided by at Marah, and they're going to have more water, and they have bread from heaven called man, and meat in the form of quail. The rules of Shabbat and the holiness of Shabbat is further taught through this, through the man. They're told, don't leave man over until the morning. Some do that and it develops worms. They're supposed to learn to trust and rely upon Hashem, and then to collect double on Friday for Shabbat. Do not collect on Shabbat. And we're told that the man fell regularly for 40 years until they entered the land. Hashem also says to take a jar of man and to keep that as a remembrance for Bnei Israel of how Hashem fed Bnei Israel during the time that they were in the wilderness. They travel some more. They come to a place, once again complain about water, and this time Hashem says to Moshe, strike the rock and water will come forth. And that is exactly what happens, and the place is called Masa Umeriva, which is strife and quarrel, because they had complained, but Hashem does provide them with water. In the very last section of the parasha, they come to a place called Refidim, where the nation of Amalek attacks the rear. And Moshe says to Yehoshua, choose men to fight. There's going to be a war against Amalek, and they go to war. Yehoshua leads the men to war, and Moshe is overseeing all of this, and whenever he raises his hands, Bnei Israel prevail. And so he doesn't lower his hands with the assistance of Aaron and Hur. Yehoshua weakens Amalek, and Hashem says, write this down as a remembrance. And there's even an altar. Moshe builds an altar saying that there will be war against Amalek from one generation to the next. And that brings us to the end of Parashat Beshallach. Let's go back to the very, very beginning of the parasha. Vayhi Beshallach Paro et ha'am, and it was when Paro released the people. Paro let the people go. V'lo nacham Elokim derech eretz Plishtim. God did not lead them by the way of the land of the Philistines. That would be to follow the coastal road along the coast of the Mediterranean. And it uses the word ki karov hu. We would usually translate that as because it was close. And then the latter part of the pasuk says, God said that if the people see war, because they might see war when they encounter the Pelishtim, the Philistines, they're going to have a change of heart, and they'll try to go back to Egypt. So Hashem instead takes them not along that road. Instead, he takes them to the road that goes into the wilderness. But the words ki karov hu is a little bit difficult. The Ha'amek Davar, written by Rav Naftali Tzvi Yehuda Berlin, known as the Netziv, explains that this choice of expression, ki karov hu, shows that this is the main reason why Hashem is doing what he did. On the other hand, the latter part of the pasuk, which says, because God said, maybe the people will see, or lest the people have a change of heart when they see war, the Netziv argues, is not the main reason. Because, as the Netziv points out, Bnei Yisrael tried time and time again, or made the argument time and time again, that we should go back to Egypt, and Hashem never allowed that to happen. Hashem always took care of his people throughout the time that they were in the wilderness. So the Netziv's point is, he said that Hashem said that the purpose is to keep them from encountering war, but that's the reason that would make sense to them, let's say, at the time. But the real fact is that Hashem would have prevented them from going back to Egypt. The real reason, which maybe Bnei Israel weren't ready to hear yet, why he didn't take them the shorter route, is precisely because it was close. As the Netziv explains, Hashem is now in the process of forming the national character of the people of Israel. They need time. They need time to formulate this character, and therefore going too close, too directly, too quickly into the land would not have afforded them the time to develop the character that they actually need. Hashem doesn't want them to mix with the Philistines. He doesn't want them to be influenced by their character. They need time to formulate their own character, and that's a character that's going to be developed by going into the wilderness, by living together, working together, and also ultimately receiving the Torah at Har Sinai, and everything else we will learn about in the upcoming weeks. I thank you all very much for joining me for this exploration of Parashat Beshallach. This has been Rabbi Abraham Fischer for Parsha Highlights and Insights, saying Shalom.